When I put that fundraiser out there to buy my husband's cows, it went viral. The only thing I really did was have such a passion for these cows that I was willing to die for them.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Everybody Hates Vegans podcast, where we challenge preconceptions and explore the nuanced journey towards veganism. I'm your former horse trainer turned vegan host, Brees Clark, joined with former fisherman and football lineman turned vegan, Chase DeBeck. Each episode, we're chatting with the movers and shakers who are rewriting the script on what it means to live a compassionate life. Today, get ready for an epic story of transformation with our incredible guest, Renee King-Sonnen, the rock star founder of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary.
Renee's journey is nothing short of a vegan revolution. Picture this, a city girl from Houston, Texas, thrown into the ranch life in Angleton. But here's the twist. Instead of going with the flow, Renee flips the script. After getting up close with the farm animals, she has a massive heart change. Fast forward to 2014 and boom, she's vegan, turning her cattle ranch into a haven for farm animals. Talk about a plot twist. Renee's transformation is a radical shift from her ranching days, becoming a beacon of hope and change in the vegan movement. But hold on, it gets even better. Renee's story hits the big time, making waves on CBS, ABC, and even Animal Planet. She's not just changing her life, she's inspiring ranchers all over to rethink their businesses and lifestyle. Enter the Rancher Advocacy Program, Renee's brainchild helping farmers pivot to more earth-friendly, animal-loving ways. It's all about bringing compassion into the heart of America's farmlands. So buckle up and let's get a little rowdy with Renee King-Sonnen. Renee, welcome to the show.
Well, thank y'all so much. What an introduction.
Yeah, we worked hard on that. It was we had to do our research. We wanted to make sure you got the introduction that you deserve.
Yeah, I was listening to that going, golly, I've been around. I've been around.
Yeah, and you've been around and you're an inspiration to so many people. So it's a great pleasure to have you on the show, and we're really excited to get into some of these topics with you.
Thank you. I love y'all. I love the name of your podcast. It's definitely got a rowdy ring to it.
Yeah. Why do you think like the title of our podcast rings so true?
Because everybody hating vegans is it's such a common thread amongst the community. People hating on vegans when they really ought to be hating on the industry. So
Right, for sure.
yeah,
Mhm.
The whole shoot the messenger issue.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Renee, it's really special for me to have you as a guest and to get to pick your brain a little bit because, am also from kind of this country lifestyle, growing up training horses with my dad and other family members being involved in 4-H, and we originally had a dairy farm, and then the horse training kind of replaced the dairy when that wasn't able to stay a successful business. And so it's powerful for me to hear other stories of people that have gone from this kind of country lifestyle to compassion for animals, because it might seem like it's this huge jump, but for me it really wasn't, in the sense that even when I was on the farm, I loved animals, right? And there is, like you said, kind of, to use your word, like the thread of wanting to care for these animals, but maybe you almost can't, like the business prevents you from truly embodying this compassion that you might feel for them. And so once you can kind of like remove that component of it, that the industry keeps your compassion at bay, then you can really step into who you want to be. And that transformation is just so liberating and freeing. Have you experienced that in the same way?
Oh yeah. I mean, the industry paradigm is like a juggernaut on your emotions. It the paradigm of animal agriculture is, they only have one bad day Uh, and when in reality, every day that they are existing is a bad day because it's all a lie. And we betray them every step of the way until they're slaughtered. So, you know, it's interesting. You know, we used to always care for these animals. We helped them, you know, sometime deliver their babies. We, you know, were always out there taking care of them while they were with us. But when we sent them to the sale barn, you know, my husband always says, you know, he hated taking them to the sale barn because, you know, all they knew was us. And then Tommy's the last one they see when they're getting, you know, prodded and you know with stickers on their back going into an auction ring. And it's really horrible that we have become, you know, people that betray animals to that degree, all in the name of King Ag.
Mm.
Yeah, and one thing that I often mention when we're doing advocacy on the street is how well can you treat animals whose sole purpose is to make you money from being dead. You know what I mean? So like being able to switch over and have the sanctuary after making that realization is really awesome. And I want to touch on what you said about the sale barn too, because Brees and I have gone to a few sale barns and have actually rescued an animal from a sale barn here in Michigan. What whenever you would go to the sale barns, would you have to stay and watch the animals that you would take there be auctioned off, or was it you just drop them off and head back to the farm?
No, they're just dropped off and we leave.
Yeah. So then what's next in that process? The animals get auctioned and then they call you with, the money that you made from them?
Yeah, well, my husband would get a receipt because
Mhm.
they're just commodities. You know, they're they're bought and sold on their weight, and so he would get a receipt from who was dropped off at the sale barn according to their weight and whether or not they were a cow calf pair or maybe a cow that uh, you know had was bred already,
Mhm.
and so that they would just get a receipt based on what he dropped off, the poundage.
Right.
Just for our listeners who aren't as familiar with your story, can you just give a brief um, overview of how you were able to move Tommy in the direction of let's start a sanctuary, let's keep these animals? Because I think that is a remarkable thing that you were able to do with Tommy, especially given his legacy there. And yeah, just give us the Rowdy Girl story if you could.
Sure, it started. Me and Tommy married for the second time in 2010. I moved in with him in 2009. I acquired a calf named Rowdy Girl. I named her Rowdy Girl, and
Mm,
she was an orphan. And I began to bottle feed her in 2010. And when I started bottle feeding that baby, I began to. Um, it was like all the other cows in the pasture started coming into focus for me, and I started seeing them all individually instead of like a herd mentality. I started having an individual relationship connection with them all. And
hmm
that was through Rowdy Girl. And Rowdy Girl and I have a very unique bond. She's still alive to this day.
Nice.
And she's the one that showed me the true sentience of cows. And it's because of her that I began to question what we were doing. It's because of her that my eyes began to open and the scales of conditioning and normalized violence began to fall away. But it didn't happen overnight. It took about 5 years of
hmm
of waking up. It was kind of like it just took a long time for me to finally not be able to do it anymore. I literally almost went crazy uh, because I'm married to a cattle rancher, and you know, you don't go vegan on a cattle ranch. I didn't even know what vegan was. I knew what vegetarian was, But my real vegan advocate was Rowdy Girl. Rowdy
Mhm.
Girl ate grass. Cows eat grass. Imagine that.
Mhm.
Cows eat grass and convert all of that to protein. We're always wondering about, well, where you get your protein. I'm like, God, all you got to do is look at a cow. Look at a
Yeah.
gorilla. They convert all these plants to protein. That's what we do. We are a protein converting machine, and we certainly don't need to eat flesh to make protein.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
eat amino acids to make protein. Anyway, that's another story. Uh,
Yeah.
anyway, I went vegan on October 31st, Halloween, after watching a multitude of slaughterhouse videos. I was the cattle rancher's wife that started questioning everything we were doing. I started watching slaughterhouse videos, trying to make sense of what we were doing. I didn't want to do it anymore, and but I didn't have any solutions. I just was heartbroken every time Tommy would send the animals to the sale barn. uh my heart would break because that trailer would leave with those babies, and the mamas would follow it all the way, out the road up Highway 35, just bawling and crying for their babies. And it was obvious that they wanted their children back, that we were stealing their kids. It was so obvious.
Mhm.
And that we were part of a system that normalized not only violence, but kidnapping, that normalized, just torturing these mothers and these babies. I just began to uh, hate what we were doing, but I
Mhm.
didn't have any ideas about going vegan. My heart was breaking, my soul was
Mhm.
crushing. And
Mhm.
so, uh, on Halloween 2014, I stumbled on a Dr. Melanie Joy dissertation on carnism, where there's a family sitting around a table eating beef stew, and somebody wants to know what the recipe is. And she says, well, you start off with a pound of very young golden retriever. And I was shocked because because I loved beef stew, and all at
Mhm.
once, my brain exploded into thinking, oh my God, them the people are eating a baby puppy all chopped up. And
Mhm.
and then she says, oh, just kidding, it's really a cow. But the people at the table couldn't keep eating because the thought of them eating a
Right.
dog made them want to vomit.
Mm.
And I left that day to go to my mother-in-law's. It was Halloween, and every year we had a block party for all the kids, the nieces, the nephews, the in-laws, the outlaws. We all got together and we had a big party, a block party where we watched the Halloween parade. And so I leave my house after watching that beef stew revelation, and I go to my mother-in-law's, and she comes out with a big pot of beef stew. It was as
Wow.
if
Mhm.
I stepped into the script. I
Wow.
just said, "I can't eat that." And everybody in the house looked at me like, "Why?" Everybody stopped talking, looked at me. And I said, "Because it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it, and I can't eat it." And so that is the day I went vegan on the spot. It was as if I went down a rabbit hole, and man, I was done. And when I was done, when I say I was done, I was balls to the wall done. I
You fell down that
became
rabbit hole pretty hard.
because it took 5 years for me to wake up. I finally went vegan. I didn't even know I was going vegan.
Right.
I just knew I wasn't eating any more of that shit. I knew I was
Mhm.
done. And uh, my mother-in-law said, "Well, Renee, you could pick it out." I said, "No, there ain't no more picking it out for me." And I meant it. And so I became Tommy's worst nightmare. And I didn't know we were the first documented beef cattle ranch in the world for this to happen to out loud and in public, because I went public. See, and that's what really pissed Tommy off is it wasn't our neighbors that knew about it first. It was the public. It was social media. I went on social media and I started letting everybody know what had happened, and I needed
Mm.
help because I was going to save them cows. They weren't going to go to slaughter, not on my watch. And I didn't know how that was going to happen. And I met my first friend, Jeannie Westfall. and she's the one that sent me a bunch of documentaries. And to Tommy's credit, he watched them every one. And that's when I met Kip Anderson. He reached out to me actually and wanted to help me. Uh, he said, "Why don't you, start a fundraiser on Indiegogo and buy your husband's cows?" And I was like, "Wow, that's pretty radical." But that's, I can do that. So, I mean, I just, instead of saying, "No, that's too hard," I went, "Yeah, I'll do that." And so I built a fundraiser and started a private secret, you know, Facebook page called Secret Diary of a Cattle Rancher's Wife. And I started raising the money to buy my husband's cows because he was going to send them all to slaughter. He was just going to get out of the business, get a divorce. We were fighting all the time. And, you can't just let cows breed and breed and breed. You got to sell them. The industry's set up in such a way where you can't keep cows because they're going to breed and then you don't have enough land. You don't have enough hay. It's very expensive. So it's set up to kill animals to be profitable. That's the only way you can be profitable. And, the way I was doing it was blocking Tommy from selling cows. I said, "You send that trailer up the road one more time, and I will follow you. I will go to the sale barn. I'll buy all those cows back with your credit card. I'll bring them back home." And and Tommy got furious with me because he knew I was serious. I said, "You
Mhm.
try me. I will stand in front of that trailer. You'll have to run over me. I will become that vegan you do not want to see." Because I started learning about veganism and what vegan activists did, and I thought, well, I'll do that. I will be a vegan activist on my husband. And anyway, uh, as the story goes, he didn't sell the cows. I bought the cows in less than 4 months. Turned
Nice.
the first documented beef cattle ranch ever in the world to go vegan. And the very next year, I got the Vegan Rookie Activist of the Year award from Veg News. I didn't even know I was
Nice.
in it.
Did
Wow.
you stand outside the house with a sign that said "Meat is murder" for all those months
No,
until it was time to buy the cows?
no, I didn't have to. My mouth was loud enough.
There we go. There we go. That's what I like to hear.
Man, what a story of just bravery. I mean,
Yeah.
you are just fierce.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
Yeah, you made up your mind and you didn't change it. Not for anyone. That's
Yeah,
and especially coming from like not knowing what vegan is, like
I didn't.
to then being the biggest advocate for these animals, like that is bravery right there.
Well, thank you. It's
I
kind of like I really do believe, and I have hope for humanity. I believe that once once the door is cracked open, even a little bit, the light of reason can shine through. But it's
mm,
it's getting that crack in the door. And
mhm.
that's what happened to me when I watched that Melanie Joy dissertation on carnism. See, all of a sudden there was a crack. It was like it took years and years and years of me trying to figure out how to do, the wrong thing the right way. You cannot do the wrong thing the right way. I don't care how hard you try. You can't do it if it's wrong.
I love what you said about um that you didn't know what vegan was. That I felt the same way, and I feel like now with veganism being, a bit more in the mainstream, it puts it gives a description to what we're talking about, but it also gets tied up with other things. It's sometimes I feel like it shifts people away from this true meaning, which is a human experience. It's not a label. It's not. It's a real emotional process of looking inward and assessing whether or not we want to live in a world that does this to animals. That it's a profound shift that I feel like almost the word vegan sometimes can cheapen it, or maybe the stereotype of veganism can cheapen it. And so I hope that people can hear how it took a long time for you, and this, I think this is true for most people, I'm glad that you were able to pinpoint, like you said, these cracks in the facade, and for you it was the Melanie Joy, and for me it was slaughterhouse footage and factory farming footage. There was a documentary called Meet Your Meat, and I had that same like epiphany, like whoa, I was shattered myself. I'm curious, do you think that people need to see slaughterhouse footage in order to have this awakening?
I do. I mean, it wasn't just the Melanie Joy that did it for me. That was the final straw, like if you play that
Mm,
game Pixie Sticks and you pull that
mhm,
one stick out and everything falls. Prior to
mhm,
that, I was watching tons of slaughterhouse footage, and I
mhm,
was a cattle rancher's wife, and the reason why is because I was trying to figure out how to do the wrong thing the right way. I
Yeah.
kept
mhm,
trying to see if there was a humane way to kill an animal.
mhm,
And, I mean, we used to do humane milk, quote unquote. We used to do humane meat, humane eggs, all that. And every time I would research it, I would find all these inhumane practices that tried to call themselves humane. And Tommy kept telling me that was just PETA propaganda. And so then I started researching what is PETA. The reason I learned about veganism was through my searching in with PETA, because I didn't even know what vegan was. I'd heard of vegetarian, but I learned about veganism through right before I went vegan. I started researching what vegan was, but the idea of going vegan, I never could allow myself to even speculate.
Right.
Couldn't do it. But I started learning about it on accident when I was watching slaughterhouse videos. And that's when I was like, wow, that's interesting. So when the day I went vegan and didn't know I was going vegan, I realized after I went vegan, oh my God, I'm a vegan. Because this must be what a vegan is. And that's when I went online and started looking for vegan friends, was after I went vegan, not before.
Mhm.
And so it's such an interesting layer by layer by layer by layer of how I went vegan, how Tommy eventually went vegan,
Mhm.
and how we converted our cattle ranch into vegan. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I could not have written a business plan for this, you know.
Right.
So with your husband Tommy's family, um, what kind of legacy is that? Like, does this go back several generations of family farmers, or where does this whole family history of farming begin?
Yeah, the Sonnen Ranch brand. Tommy has the brands, the iron brands from his great great grandfather's um, cattle ranch business, and it goes back to the late 1800s. And Tommy tells the story of uh, I think it's his great grandpa or great great grandpa. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But they would actually herd the animals in from San Antonio, just off the free range and brand them and, ride them into Houston where they had a slaughterhouse. They had a slaughterhouse in Houston and they had one in Alvin, Texas. And that's what they did.
Wow. So, do you feel like when ranchers, farmers feel this juggernaut of emotion with the industry, that if they were to like if they were to want to step away, that it's almost like a betrayal on this family history and legacy?
It didn't know whether it might feel like it. It freaking is. And
Hmm.
that is the issue is it's set up that way. It's set up I mean, we're taught that farmers, are, the salt of the earth, and they are. And we're taught that, farmers are, feeding the world, and they are. Unfortunately, they are taught uh, through systems of normalized violence that animal farming is necessary, because of it dates back, honestly, to biblical days when a ritual slaughter became vogue, and priests and all began to profit off of you know animal slaughter for rituals and stuff. So it really does date back that far, and so a there's a thread of righteousness and God and all of that tied up into farming animals.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one thing that I really wish more people would see
Mhm.
is that it's almost it should be taken as a point of pride to your family, really, to be able to make the change from abusing these animals to being an animal rescue, like in your case, like taking this long line of family history and then changing it to be more positive towards animals and to be more positive towards the land and other people, and just being a positive impact on your community rather than feeding into this system that has been ingrained into our culture for thousands of years.
To that point, though, is that, like, I don't think they view it as abuse. That's key.
That's what it kind of means. Like, I wish that we could um reimagine what it means to care for animals, from the farmer's side, that is.
Mhm.
Well,
Um,
that's what we have to do. That is the order of the day, is to
mhm,
figure out how to do that. It's if you can imagine that 10,000 years ago, there was no cows like there are today. There was I can't remember the name of the breed. It started with an A. Uh, it wasn't the cows we have today. The cows we have today have been bred to be food.
right,
They
Mhm.
weren't created to be food. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
right, right.
I'm trying to think of the name of that type of cow.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. They're like the ancestor of the modern cow.
Yeah, yeah. Now I've got to know. So I can't remember the name. It's like gonna haunt me until I find out. So
Well, Renee, let's bring it back, and I want to talk about some of your upbringing. I want to know who Renee is at your core. So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in the outskirts of Houston, in a little town called Jacinto City. Pretty much, the barbecue eating, chili cook off, you know, going to the rodeo girl,
Right.
That's the way I grew up. I grew up in, dating guys in FFA, going to the pens, we called them the pens, every year, where they had their pigs, their steer and all for FFA.
Mhm,
Uh, that's the way I grew up, but we don't know what we don't know.
mhm,
There's no way we can even know it. I mean, you go to the rodeo, you go to watch, all these circuses, and
mhm,
you go to the aquarium, in downtown Houston. You go to things where animals are commodified because that's what you know.
mhm.
Yeah, it's not even an option. I even that's a your experience down there in Texas, which I can imagine was completely non-existent. But it's true that that even exists up here in Michigan. Growing up in a small town, I had never even heard of the concept of not eating meat or a vegetarian until my brother started dating a girl who was vegetarian, and it to our family that was the strangest thing. Like, that set her up to be this. What? Who are you bringing? Like, doesn't eat meat? Like, why? It just was this bizarre. I mean, absolutely bizarre concept. that she was a vegetarian. It felt like hippie fringe, just out of this, just completely not something that we were familiar with at all.
It's such it's such a like a steel trap. Animal agriculture has a steel trap around humanity's emotions and their
Mhm.
heart. And I really do believe that once we can have a paradigm shift, like I don't know if y'all have heard of the film that's going to be coming out called Christspiracy or not,
Yeah.
but that documentary has the power to bust through that type of paradigm. Because once farmers and ranchers see that they've been really duped by animal agriculture, once they see it, they feel it, they get it in their gut, they're going to be pissed the F off because they've been
Mm.
lied to. That's the way I felt when I finally had that aha moment and I went vegan. I was mad. I was mad at everybody because I was lied to at my core. It's kind of like when you find
Mhm.
out when you're a little kid there ain't no Santa Claus. You know, you believe in something your whole life. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden you realize it's a damn lie. Everybody's been lying to you. And that's what's going to happen. Christspiracy has that power, by the way. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited for that documentary, especially growing up in like I feel like most of these small towns have these similar themes, conservative values generally based around religious experience, and that was what I grew up in too. And I'm really, really excited because I feel like there's so many like and this is a topic that I was really looking forward to discussing with you, Renee, is like I feel like there are so many um honest, virtuous principles in most religions, but my experiences with Christianity. But like you said, the animal agriculture industry uh, sort of like pulls the wool over their eyes when it comes to what they eat and how what they eat doesn't align with these values that they're claiming. Like, what would Jesus do? He was this symbol of peace and nonviolence and love your neighbor as you love yourself and all these wonderful things. But when I was younger and I started to question where meat came from, it always was like, well, in fact, my aunt, who I was really close to, they were dairy farmers, and I remember very specifically how she explained this to me. I'll never forget it. She said that it was a necessary evil. And so I think that key word there is necessary. They justify it because they don't think there's another way of being healthy, right? And that is the ultimate lie. I'm curious to hear your perspective on like who you think that singular, or if there is a singular source of this narrative and this deception. Maybe Christspiracy has more of an answer to that.
It does. It comes from the church. It comes from ancient, beliefs. Um, when Constantine came in and changed the Bible to his way of thinking, he flipped doctrine into a meat eating narrative. Prior to that, there it wasn't like that. The main thing that I get out of what happened historically from a Christian quote unquote perspective is is the beginning of time, according to that belief, was all vegan. The whole Genesis 129 uh you know information, what comes out of the Bible is everybody was vegan, including animals. Nope. Nobody ate each other. Everybody ate in the garden. Everybody ate in the garden. And
The Garden of Eden was vegan.
yeah, everybody ate in the garden, including the lions and tigers and bears. And so when confusion came in to play, uh, according to what I've studied, God gave us free will, and mankind is the worst species on the planet. I mean, we are the ones that insist on normalizing violence at every turn. I mean, animals don't normalize violence. They've become meat eaters because of our fallen ways. I really don't think it was ever intended in the beginning of time for animals to eat each other. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my belief. I ain't saying
Mm-hmm.
it's true, but that's what I believe, and I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of studying in that way. Cameron was
Mm-hmm.
just here. Cameron with Crawspiracy was just here at Rowdy Girl a couple of weeks ago. He spent a
Mm.
few days
Oh, wow.
here, and we were recorded for a bit, and so I don't know. We might even get a bit in the documentary. We'll see.
So, I mean, you kind of touched on it there, but like, I guess if you can expand a little bit more on, excuse me, how you see the relationship between Christian values and veganism. Like, maybe if you were to have a conversation with non-vegan Christians, how do you help them see that the philosophical worldview of compassion for animals is in sync with what they already believe as a Christian?
Well, the main thread throughout the Christian Bible is that God loves mercy more than sacrifice. Uh, I really do believe that eating animals was an allowance that God gave to a very fallen humanity. Uh, I do not think it was ever intended. And there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about false scribes. There are false scribes. The Bible has been reinterpreted, rewritten to follow a meat eating narrative. If you use your own head and heart and you go back before Constantine and you study the Bible, you study the original scriptures before, the original name of God was taken out, because God is not even God's name, it's Yahweh. Jesus is not even Jesus's name, it's Yahshua. And so if you go back, way back, you get a different truth, you know
Mm-hmm.
and I really do believe that Jesus himself was the ultimate animal rights activist. I believe when he flipped those tables in those temples, uh, what he was really doing was flipping the switch for animal liberation, because there was so much suffering of animals in those markets. It was all
Yeah.
it was all money related.
Mm-hmm.
I like that interpretation. I also liked what you said um, about God likes mercy rather than um,
Yeah.
sacrifice.
Hmm.
And I always tell people that when we're on the street too, like when we get into the religious discussions, I say, okay, God allows you to do this, but wouldn't He rather you see, or wouldn't He rather see that you made the choice to show mercy on these animals rather than, sacrificing them and eating them only because He allowed you to? Like I agree with you. I think he would rather see us showing mercy to these animals and saying, no, you allow me to do this, but I don't have to do that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna eat something else instead, and let the animals live and show mercy to them.
Well, think about what's going to happen to us, when whenever we're looked at. Would we rather have mercy on us?
As I understand it, Jesus was the ultimate and last sacrifice that was necessary, and so that also connects here of we don't need to sacrifice any animals anymore, because he was the last sacrifice. I want to ask you, just because I think some people might be wondering, at least that I've come up against this in conversations with Christian folks, that the story of Jesus and the fishermen, and how he provided all of this fish these fishermen, and they ate and they were well. How do you reconcile that? How do you perceive him making fish available and consuming? And some people even say that he consumed the fish himself. What do you think about that?
Several things. Number one, Jesus said he hung out with the people that were fishermen because that he was trying to make them fishers of men. He even says that in his word, in the word. Follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. Um, I really don't I try not to get into the argument too much about whether Jesus ate fish or not. I don't believe he did. Because there's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, there's scriptural discrepancies around that. Not every one of those canons have the same story. And so, we have to study to understand. And we also have to know that the English words that we are reading are misinterpreted and reinterpreted and reinterpreted. I mean, there's actually a book that I'm studying that says fish really was fishweed, like seaweed.
Mm.
And so, you know, and again, you know, if you study Jesus's family, they were vegetarian. Jesus's whole family was vegetarian. And I mean, and vegetarian back in that day was like being vegan. But did he eat fish? You know, he might have, but I don't think so. And if he did it to get people to follow him to make fishers of men. I really don't think he did eat fish though. There's a
Mm.
there's a Instagram and Facebook church. It's called Creation Care Church. You should follow them. Right now they got the Bible and veganism, 14 answers to 14 objections, part 2 of 4.
Oh wow.
And that's one of the things they're talking about right here. See, Jesus went fishing with his disciples. This is an accommodation of cultural practices. Jesus desired to be among poor fishermen and said, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." God slowly changes culture from within through the preaching of the gospel. And that's in Matthew 4:19 and Mark 1:17.
Mm.
So, there's so many ways to look at it. And people that want to eat meat and hurt animals will do everything they can to distort the Bible and search out scriptures where, they so that they can pretty much thirst after blood. It's really horrible.
Well, the most interesting thing there for me, like that I want to add to my arsenal in having these discussions with folks from this background, is what you said about Jesus's family being vegetarian. Can you point me in the direction of the source in the Bible for that?
If you just research, I'd have to grab my books down there they're right in front of me, but I'd have to grab my books to tell you where. But James is a reported vegetarian. It tells you what he ate in the Bible. If you look up James,
Okay.
you'll find all about it. James
Okay.
was a vegetarian. And if James was a vegetarian, his family's vegetarian. I mean, it doesn't take much rocket science to figure out, this stuff if you go searching for it.
Right.
So wait, I'm getting names confused here. I thought Jesus's like human father was Joseph, not
James is Jesus' brother.
brother. Okay.
I'm sorry. If I said father, I meant brother.
I didn't. Okay, interesting. I will look into that. That's
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, because yeah, James was definitely a vegetarian.
Hmm.
And if you do your research and go deeper, there's a book I love. It's called Why Every Christian Should Be Vegan by Ryan Hicks. It will
Mm.
answer all kind of questions for you.
Wow. A lot of good stuff there. I'm really stoked for the Christspiracy to come out and just lay the hammer on this.
Yeah,
It is definitely going to, for sure.
And you have today shared some information about the Bible that I had no idea about, like Jesus' family being vegetarian and everything like that. So it's good information to have, like Bree said, when you're on the street having these conversations with people, and you kind of
Or in
reach
your
that
family,
stalemate.
too.
Or family, if you have a religious family, for sure.
Well, we have so many scriptures, so many books of the Bible that have been taken out. They're not even in the Bible anymore. There's so many, and then there's the Essene Gospel of Peace. There's the books on Jesus being an Essene. The fact that there's like 13 or so years missing out of the Bible of Jesus's entire life, you know? And so
Mhm.
that those scriptures, those journals are somewhere. You know, you don't
Yeah.
you don't you don't have a Bible where the entire Bible is set for you to follow this one person, Jesus, and for there to be like all these years missing out of it about his life.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was taken out on purpose.
The the identity shift from like the Texas country lifestyle to vegan activist is so profound. How has the transformation influenced your personal sense of identity, and what advice would you have for others who are contemplating a similar journey?
You know, it's easier today because, our story and stories like ours, when they get a foothold in the consciousness of the media, then it can begin to open up, channels for other people to see a way out.
Mhm.
And to also see that, it could be normal. It could be normal to be a vegan in Texas. And there's a lot of Texas vegans. There's a big vegan footprint in Texas.
Yeah.
Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston. We have great vegan restaurants out here.
Mhm.
And
I
huh?
Oh, I was just gonna say I have a friend actually in Austin that I've visited a few times, and he's vegan. Him and his wife are vegan, and I will tell you what, that Austin food vegan scene is incredible.
It
I
is.
love everywhere that I went had such great vegan food, and I loved it, which
It
was
does.
surprising coming from Texas. I was surprised.
There is a food truck called Happy Vegans, HAPPEA.
Hmm.
They make barbecue brisket. They make
Ooh.
chicken fried steak. They make any and everything you could think of that meat eaters want to just like salivate over, and you would never know the difference.
Yeah, the scene in Texas is. I I feel like that's got to be connected to you, Renee. All the press that you were able to receive is just remarkable. I mean, people probably don't realize all of the work that goes into getting your name out there, and I'm sure you have spent more time behind a computer than you would like, but that's what it takes to get, the recognition for something so remarkable as what you and Tommy have done.
Thank you. I never have once gone after any press. I've never
Really?
asked anybody to interview me. Our
They have
story,
come to you.
they
You are so big
Wow.
and so important that they have come to you,
Well,
and that says
I,
something right there.
I want to tell
I
you
take
that
those words back.
I want to tell you that because the work I've done behind the computer has been to save these animals from
Mhm.
slaughter. The work I've done behind the computer has been to tell our story on social media, to keep moving it, to keep moving it. Uh, but honestly, when uh, Houston Chronicle picked up our story, because people that fundraiser when I put that fundraiser out there to buy my husband's cows, it went viral. The only thing I really did was have such a passion for these cows that I was willing to die for them. I was willing to go head to head with my husband. I was willing to do whatever it took to save them. That passion turned into a whirlwind of energy in the media because that's the kind of story, real human story that the media wants to tell. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that's the reason why they came. CBS called me after. I mean, can imagine. Houston Chronicle does a story. We end up on the front page. A couple days later, CBS Evening News calls from Steve Hartman on the road. They call me from New York,
Hmm.
and 2 days later,
That's
they're at my house. Animal Kingdom.
wow.
It's like it just keeps happening.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. It reminds me of that movie. If you build it, they will come.
That's exactly
Oh,
what's happening.
the Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with our
Um.
documentary, the Rowdy Girl film. The documentarian reached out to us. We interviewed him. He came out here. I wanted to make sure he was legit. And he
Mhm.
spent weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks with us.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Is that coming out soon?
Well, it will be eventually. We've been, we had our world premiere at Hot Docs in Toronto. We had our
Mhm.
U.S. premiere at the Hampton Film Festival. I
Oh, wow.
know
Nice.
eventually it's going to be online for everybody, but he's doing all he can right now to keep it special so that film festivals want to pick it up.
Awesome. Well, that's amazing. I'm really excited to see that. Just to wrap up here, and I'd like to get kind of your sense of, when what is it about being on a sanctuary that that gives you, I don't know, that gets you up every morning? Like, walk us through, like, getting up in the morning, going out into this with the animals, and that feeling, um, that makes you feel like you're, I don't know, that you're fulfilling your life's mission.
Doing the right thing.
That's a great question. It's the reason I do everything. My entire reason for getting up in the morning is because I know I have, right at 137 heartbeats out there that depend on me.
Mhm.
And you just can't quantify the feeling taking a walk and seeing one of the cows that, like yesterday, Surprise was walking by me. Surprise is a massive, probably 1,500-pound steer that I stumbled over when he was a little baby. Uh,
Mm.
his mama is White Spot. And she was standing right next to him yesterday. They all stay together. And I got out of my car, turned the car off. I walk over to the fence, the barbed wire fence, and Surprise was out in the middle. But I remember, whenever he was a baby and how I almost stepped on him. He was so little, and how I, you know, helped him grow up. To love humans and to have the human interaction and not be scared of humans. And I said, "Hey, Surprise!" I hollered at him, and he looked over at me. He knows his name. They all do. And cows take their own sweet time. They got to chew on their
Mhm.
cud a minute and look at you and check things out. And then a few minutes later, he just starts sauntering over to me because he wanted a neck rub. And I knew he did.
Mhm.
He loves neck rubs. It's a big old 1,500-pound steer, massive, comes to the barbed wire fence. And I start rubbing his head. Next thing you know, he's extending his neck. And I'm rubbing his neck. And his mama White Spot is just standing there looking. And, you know, that's why I do what I do. I mean, do you really think Jesus would slit that throat after you'd been rubbing the neck of a cow? Do you think I'd then pull out a knife and slit his throat?
No
I
way.
mean, so the reason I do what I do is because these animals out there will extend their neck for me. They trust me. I can
Mm,
walk amongst that herd and I know I'm part of it. I know I'm one of them. I can lay down in
mhm,
the grass with them and they won't step on me. They'll walk around me. They'll lay down with
mhm.
me. I do want you all to know also, I wrote a book. It's actually called, the working title is Secret Diary of a Cattle Rancher's Wife, but
Mm,
it's recently been picked up by United Talent Agency,
Oh, nice.
In New York, so they're gonna be shopping it to you know, major publishers this year,
hmm.
and,
Wonderful.
if everything goes right, we could have a deal by 2025. I don't think it'll happen in 2024, but you never know.
For
Uh,
sure.
and, there's also a major film, being considered about our story. So,
Mm,
you never
yeah.
know out there, whoever's listening, you
Mm,
never know how doing the right thing can catch on and
Yeah,
become a game changer for the world.
for sure.
mm,
You just never know. Just always follow your heart. Always follow. Never be afraid to die for what you believe in. I really do believe that that is what cracked the code for Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. Is that I really was willing to die for this cause.
hmm. It reminds me of sort of like that Eastern philosophical thought of the energy you put out is what comes back. Because when the Renee, I would imagine the thing that really drove that passion was the the energy that you felt being around these peaceful beings and how wonderful that felt in your body, and you that's the kind of world that I would imagine you wanted to hang on to that. You wouldn't want to see that be taken away, that peaceful existence that they had in their own world that was shared between the two of you, that the feeling on the ranch, on a warm sunny day, and the green grass and the wind blowing and the animals are at peace and you're at peace. That's the model, and that's what you're fighting for.
Exactly right.
And
And it ain't never good enough. I always say
mm,
to our animal care staff, it's not ever good enough because in a in a in a utopian world where animals are liberated, there'd be no fences at all. There'd be no enclosures you have to put them in. The world would be their home like it is ours.
Right.
You
mhm,
know, we shouldn't have to have fences and enclosures and all that. And so I always look at ways to make the animals' lives better. And whenever I was going vegan and Tommy wasn't, the day I went vegan, it was so weird. I walked outside of the cattle ranch that I lived at. The day before, it was a cattle ranch. The following day, I saw a sanctuary. And it wasn't
Wow.
that anything changed except my perception. Nothing
mhm,
changed except the way I was looking at things. And when I changed the way I look at things, everything around me began to change. And that is really the heart of it. We have to
mm,
change the way we've been looking at things for our
Mm.
for generations. And when we change it, everything changes. Because that's what's blocking us is looking at things through the eyes of old barbaric paradigms that are all about violence. When I walked
mhm,
outside the day I went vegan or the day after and saw those cows, I knew that they were at home now. I knew that they were no longer going to be slaughtered. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but by God, over my dead body was it going to happen. And that day forward, I lived with the cows more than I lived at home because Tommy was so mad at me. I would just stay out there with the cows. I would take my guitar, I would take my lunch, my vegan lunch, and I would take my blanket, and I would just go out and hang out with the cow all day.
Bliss.
it's the best. I love that. Oh, that's true wisdom right there. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
And I got that wisdom from Dr. Wayne Dyer. He said that, and I forget somebody else said that through the years, but it's really
Yeah.
resonated with me. I didn't make that up, but it's true. It's one of those fundamental principles of life, that when you really start looking at things different, everything changes.
Well, I think this has been such a wonderful conversation. I think our listeners are really going to get so much out of this, and thank you. I mean, tremendously. Thank you for the work that you do, for the heart that you have, for the tenacity inside, for never quitting. I mean, you've been in this for a long, long time, and you don't quit.
No.
I've never even seen you slow down.
Well, I'm glad you noticed that. I have a strong spiritual life. See Jesus over there with all the animals?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a strong spiritual life. I really do believe I'm higher powered. Uh, I take care of myself. I do a lot of yoga. And I take care of myself so I can be present. I'll be 66 next month. And
Nice. Happy early birthday.
oh, thank you. And just keep moving.
Yeah.
Just keep
Yep.
moving. As long as you're able to move and got a voice,
Amen.
Amen. That's yeah, exactly right.
All right, Chase, take us out.
Well, Renee, thank you so very much for taking your time today, and spending it with us, and sharing your story and sharing these wise words and information. It has truly been a pleasure.
I do want to say one thing. One thing.
One
if you
thing,
don't
you
mind.
got it. You got it.
I just want to say that if y'all want to support our work, the best thing you can do, the best thing anybody can do, is to become a member of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. We have 653 members, and my goal is to
Nice.
have 800 by the end of the year. And
Nice.
so it would be, some people donate $5 a month, some people donate 200 a month. But whatever you can
Nice.
afford per month, please become a member. You'll be in the Rowdy Club.
Awesome. And we will link the socials and websites in the description of the podcast. So anybody listening, you can find them there.
Thank you.
Easy access to being able to become a member of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. So once again, Renee, thank you so much for spending time with us. And I think we will wrap it there. Brees, you have anything else?
That's it. Thanks, folks, for listening to the Everybody Hates Vegans podcast. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye.